Rock and Roll Radio.
The one! This is Radio Free Raleigh.
This is Radio Free Raleigh. Kilbey with you. We're on the phone with Kevin Macbeth of Duckwood. Kevin, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining me today.
And you've heard some Duckwood songs here on Radio Free Raleigh. Kevin also has been in a number of other bands. In particular, had the album known as Fabulon. Back in the early 90s, All Girls Are Pretty, Volume 1. That was what, 92, 93, somewhere in there?
Lord, I would say, 93, 91 to 93. I always time it by Nirvana. Whenever Nirvana came out and hammered all the rest of us down to the pit.
Exactly.
Well, 93-ish.
Well, I wanted to kind of get a little backstory before, that album came out. Like, what were you up to at that time? Were you performing on your own or with a band? How did you, how did you get started?
Well, I grew up in Miami, believe it or not, of all places. And, I'd always played in bands, and, we had, regionally successful bands that would, tour up the coast of Florida and even, all the way up to New York sometimes and play CBGBs or Danceteria. But, when all that had fallen apart, I always knew I would stay in New York. So I think the last little, back of the van tour we did with my little high school, or teenage band, I should say, not high school. We were obviously graduated high school at that point. I just stayed in New York and said, here's where I'm going to make my stand. So, it wasn't like I really had a band for 20 years and we tried to work it. I just decided I would be Fabulon. I bought a 4-track cassette machine. We're staying on someone's spare bedroom in a Soho apartment and just started making demos. And, those were the days when you could go around, and it was New York City, and just pass your demos around to any management company. I got lucky. The first one I handed it to signed me. From that day on, I was signed on and started creating that persona or that project, so to speak.
Right. And that was Chrysalis, is that right?
The original label, I think the first label I signed to was Chrysalis. Gosh, you're going to test my memory on this. It was Chrysalis, and it was EMI. I bought Chrysalis, and I was kind of a victim of all that, of labels buying other labels and gobbling up another label. Mm-hmm. But I believe it was a subsidiary of Chrysalis, and eventually that turned into EMI, et cetera, and that's how it worked back then.
Well, I mean that album, and I've told you this before, but when this album first came across, I was in a music store, and you get free stuff all the time. And, the first thing that grabbed me was the album cover. Now, how did you come across this idea for the album cover?
By the way, I just grabbed my CD. It was Charisma Records, was subsidiary of Chrysalis, yeah. So that's why I couldn't remember. What happened was, I made the record. I went to L.A. and I got one of the largest deals, me and Lee Kravitz. We were buddies. We both got huge record deals, and a lot of smoke blowing up your ass, that kind of thing. And, even though Fabulon was a pop record, I always thought of it more Bowie-esque. If it's going to be called Fabulon, I'm going to make it, exotic, interesting. It's going to be, I am a songwriter, so I'm not going to just churn out pop songs, that kind of thing. But my label kind of had a different vision for me. They wanted me to be Madonna and stand in front of a green screen and do dance moves and stuff, and that wasn't me. I'm really a rock and roller at heart, a la Prince, David Bowie, the Beatles, that was me. So it was kind of me rebelling against the record label. I kind of found a picture from an artist that felt like how I felt, being held upside down by a gargantuan, ugly record company. And I kind of did it to piss them off, to be honest with you. Instead of, here's my big blue eyes and a picture of me. I mean, in retrospect, I, probably fucked that up, but it was my rebellion to say that all girls are pretty and then put a strikingly awkward looking German woman holding a man upside down on the cover. as my protest against being forced to be a sort of pop diva. And, I took a lot of flack for that, there's no doubt. But I kind of knew that would probably be the only record I would do, as I mentioned, because of, grunge coming into the scene and the whole landscape was changing. So I thought I might as well just do it and, go for broke on it.
Right. Well, I mean, it really was. I mean, that's true in that store. When all the other guys are playing their Nirvanas and Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins and stuff like that, and then the Fabulon album comes in, and I just it really grabbed me, and I played it like daily, and I just was like, this is just something really special. It's different, and it's fun, and it's musically. There's so many surprises. The production is just outstanding. I mean. It really just stuck with me.
Hey, it stuck with me too, in a bad way. No, I'm just, no, thank you, Dave, and that touches my heart. I mean, that's the one thing that saved me throughout the years is that I made a great record. I at the time, it was very confusing when you start getting dropped by labels because you're not, meeting a certain criteria of whatever trends are going on. It's a very confusing and kind of scary time. So. In retrospect, I'm still that way. I'm sure you pick things out on the Duckwood thing and hear that same kind of musical person. I never caved in. I just said, look, if I can't be a big rock star, I'm still going to be a rock star in my own heart and just do what I do and write and make interesting music.
Right.
I'm never going to just put pictures of myself, in my underwear just because, I happen to be a cute 25-year-old kid. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
I wanted it to be, I people like you to say that was a really great record to listen to. That was important.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And there's definitely, I'm trying to get some of your influences because there's definitely some Prince in there. And some of the other things, what did you listen to that kind of got you into your style?
Back then, I mean, when it was Fabulon, I was a child in the 80s in terms of, ascended to adulthood, in the early 80s, so I was listening to Tears for Fears and The Cure and a lot of those, the sort of 80s new romantic bands that were coming through. But deep down, my influences are Zeppelin, Paul McCartney, the Beatles, obviously Prince, T-Rex, David Bowie, Pink Floyd. Some more of the, ethereal rock writers, song writers. Fabulon actually was a kind of a conceptual record, as is the new Duckwood record. But I would say, people hear Prince to me all the time. I just kind of gravitated towards that kind of funky rock thing, I guess. And I mean, anything. I could listen to, like, The Association or anything that I would listen to, I would absorb. That was the Fabulon thing. It was like, just basically steal everything. And a true artist, in my opinion, steals. But, I can say the Beatles are my ultimate influence. But, I can go right up to Robert Smith and Depeche Mode and all kinds of wonderful things. Radiohead is a huge influence on me now. So Frank Sinatra, goodness, E. Martin. So that's kind of where I'm at. But it was, generally speaking, just listening to whatever was off color. And I always felt Prince was ahead of his time. Even though he was his time, he was ahead of his time.
So after, you got this news that the label is going to move on and do you just keep recording? Is that you're just still writing and recording and playing out with, is it yourself just recording, or are you finding other guys to play with in bands, or what are you doing after that album was out?
God bless them. I mean, the label did try, and I had Bruce Garfield was my manager, and there was a lot of money behind me. So what I did was I came back and I was like, all right, I have to put a band together to tour this. And in doing so, I found Adam McDougall, who plays with Chris Robinson now, and I found more rock and roll people. Again, it's a protest. So to go out and play this sampled stuff in the sort of pop menagerie that Fabulon was, upon putting this band together to go out and tour it, I discovered that it's just in my nature, I'm not going to even play this music. I'm not. And it pissed the label off. I created a new band. And there actually became a bidding war over that band once the label realized that I wasn't going to go out and try to tour Fabulon. I kind of made a record I didn't want to perform. You know what I'm saying? It would be kind of, you know, you're listening to Smells Like Teen Spirit every day. It felt kind of awkward to go out there and be like, you know, singing about, you know, love you. It just didn't feel right. So I put together this amazing band, and that was the first incarnation of Duckwood. And instead of touring or doing the Fabulon music, I created a new band, sort of preparing for the inevitable that they were going to let me go. And I might as well have a band. And so we started playing all over New York City and got right up to being signed. Actually, we were signed to Maverick Records, Madonna's label, except I apparently pissed her off, and that was it for me. So I kept Fabulon and Duckwood. But yeah, I built a band and then started writing with that band and let that band become a new thing, which was kind of retro-y rock, all of, you know, like I said, Pink Floyd, all the things I loved, where I could strap on a guitar and play as opposed to a lot of synthesizers and jumping up and down, you know, with sampled music.
Right. And speaking of, it looks like you play just about every instrument out there.
Yes, I generally play everything, you know, exception of some guest musicians that come in and play some things. But yeah, I play everything, every note.
That's awesome.
Painfully, every note.
That's fantastic. And just a side note, I told you I was a big fan of Jellyfish, and you had worked with Jason Faulkner. I guess on your Fabulon record. But then it says I just read that from him coming in and being a session player, then he started playing with other bands, and that's where he met John Bryan, and then they formed the Grays after that, which is a fantastic album. So it's all thanks to you, I suppose. Now, so you've got quite a bit of material out as Duckwood. Now, tell me of your current plans, what you're working on now. You're in Asheville. I'm just wondering how it is, because, I mean, to say that the music industry has changed is an understatement. I mean, how is it now when you're just doing your own thing, and how's it different getting your music out there? Because, you know, it's a whole different world now.
Scary. There's no real radio outlet not the same way. It's like, you know, everyone's like, how many streams did you get? How many? And it's like, God, it's a uniquely different world, and it's exhausting just because you're forced to stay in a digital world, you know, and it can really eat up a lot of your time. And instead of, you know, getting out there and you know, running around in nature and playing the guitar and trying to get shows and making the next record, you're like, you got to keep promoting that one song, you know, online. I hope you get another 10 likes and stuff. So it's interesting. It's depressing.
Yeah, it's come a long way since the like you said, with the demos and the tapes. By the way, the cassettes albums that or collections of your demos that you did, I guess, on 4 tracks. I mean, those were a pretty amazing quality for 4 tracks. I think they're pretty awesome.
I miss that. That's what I'm saying. It's like I make a joke all the time with my friends. You look at my studio, it's like, you know, there was a $10,000 piece of gear. There was $15,000. There's $5,000. There's this. There's, you know, and it's like you've got to put a plus sign between each one of those. You know, $5,000 speakers, $10,000 board, and then it all equals, you know, a shitty 128 kilohertz MP3 file in the end. And that's kind of the sensation that you get. It's like, in the end, it's just going to be what some kid on a phone digs or doesn't. And that's, back then, you know, the cassettes, you know, you made 4-track cassettes. You thought they were demos, but you made them like they were records. You didn't really know the difference, if that makes sense. You just made them and improvised as much as you could to cram as much as you could on a cassette tape. And they were little albums. You know, and maybe $600 in, you could make a little mini album. I miss those days. And that's why I released them, because, I mean, you know, you wrote a lot back then. You could write. Now kind of got to write, and then you got to go put your other hat on and go try to promote yourself. You know, or pay to play, and I've decided not to pay to play this time. I'm not going to do it.
Well, let's see. Let's go back to what you're working on right now. What's your current project? I
am actually trying to raise a few bucks to get this next record off the ground. I've got 11 songs ready to go. I think it's going to be another Duckwood record. It's there. I'm going to call it 24/7, you know, 2047. and I'm just recording because, like I said, the whole 24-hour day just trying to promote yourself is not nearly as fun as just making the music. And I just figured if I just keep slaughtering the internet with music, then I've done my job. Because it's all going to be is great, you know. I mean, I'm assuming it's the best thing that I can possibly do, but I'd much rather make the music than sit there and try to, you know, constantly promote myself online. And just let things attract. I'm a big manifester. Just bring the energy to me. And I just got offered to play guitar for Bow Wow Wow. They're doing a tour on the West Coast, and I just turned that down. Lee Gorman, you know, called me on the phone, heard my music, and was like, "Hey man, can you come out and do this?" And it's so funny. They had, you know, several hits in the '80s, and like they're basically touring in a bus again. And I'm just like, or in a van. But my point is, good energy will come to you if you just keep doing good work. So my goal is I got another record coming out, and hopefully my goal is to have it done by no later than March 1st. That's usually my goal for completing records, and just continue on with what I'm doing. Just the more I learn, you know, about this digital technology, the more intense the records are getting.
Man, we'll just keep it up. I really think you're a fascinating and talented artist, and just love for more people to hear. That's what we're trying to do, and we want to send folks over, I guess, because you have a Bandcamp page. Is that the best way for folks to check you out?
Yeah, Bandcamp is a great place to check me out. Like I said, I've released everything, and then Bandcamp, you know, if you know, again, it's people buying CDs and stuff. I don't know how, you know, it seems to be working. It's like Spotify seems to be the where you go, but I'm available everywhere. But Bandcamp or SoundCloud is where you're going to find just sort of a 25-year history of all my music. The Cassettes Volume 1, Cassettes Volume 2, the Fabulon records, the Duckwood records. You know, I got some, you know, dance tunes that I did before I ever got signed that I've released on there. So it's just sort of a kind of diary of my musical journey. And so I would say Bandcamp or SoundCloud would be the best way just to get to know me. And certainly anything that you've played, and I so appreciate you, David, playing my music on your show. I hope it's, you know, hope people are liking it. But it's just, you know, you can hear it on Spotify, Apple, you know, iTunes, anything. It's all out there.
Well, Kevin Macbeth, Duckwood, thanks so much for joining us on Radio Free Raleigh today. Really appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
Wilson, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. We love local.
And that's a good thing.
Radio Free Raleigh.